Hello and welcome to Producing in XR, How to Navigate Challenges. I'm your moderator, Chris Pfaff. I'm the CEO of Chris Pfaff Tech Media LLC based in New York. With me are three of the leading producers in the XR space. Today from Paris, we have Voyelle Acker. She is the executive producer of Small Creative. Bienvenue, Voyelle. And also from London, we have Tupac Martir. He is the founder of Satore Studio. Welcome, Tupac. And last but not least, from Brooklyn, New York, we have Michael Owen. He is the CEO of MediaCombo. We're going to start out with each of the three panelists doing some short presentations of their work, and then we'll get into a panel discussion. And our first presenter today is Voyelle. Voyelle, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for hosting us. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today. To everyone. Thanks for hosting us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my company. As you mentioned, I'm a producer at Small Creative. I am also a former head of digital storytelling department at France Télévisions, meaning that I belong to the pioneers in this kind of new technologies dedicated to new storytelling. And a year and a half ago, I founded with my partner, Vincent Gutmann, who is the head of the Small Studio. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. A new production label dedicated to high-level narrative and immersive projects. This company relies on a studio of approximately 20 people, based on more than 20 years of experience in animation and visual effects for fiction, series, cinema, and documentaries. You may have heard of MacGuff Illumination, which started with the same people. Now it's a full American company, but I won't tell you about them today because I want to tell you about what we do in terms of XR. We want to bring this, to put on the table this great knowledge in the video game and post-production industries to create new immersive experiences through an agile and technology agnostic way. So our playgrounds are AR, VR, mixed reality, but also immersive installations, museum experiences, interactive video mappings, augmented shows. We do also immersive theaters, productions, and we also work with some pipelines with artificial intelligence. And most of our projects fall under several of these categories. So we'd like to mix or to hybrid things. Last but not least, in order to build these ambitious projects and to make them as efficiently as possible, Small Creative relies on the Small by MacGuff studio that was created 7 years ago, and by MacGuff Line, which is obviously a reference company in visual effects and animation since 35 years. And the studio creates and post-produces also advertising films, original projects, but we are going to talk about immersive content today. That's for the presentation. And the last thing that I wanted to tell you about is that we also gathered with 5 other big and not big, but talented studios in France, because, you know, in France, we do not do big, but we try to be creative and efficient. And we have created a brand new label called French Immersive Studios that gathers those 6 studios. And I wanted to show you a very short show reel of what we do with those partners. Let me share my screen, which is always the technical issue. Share screen. Here it is. Here you are.
2, 3, 4. You've got something to ignore. 10, 9, 8, 6. You can always fix your case.
So you may have recognized some of the projects that you have probably seen in one of the festivals around the world. And if you want to have more information about what we do, you can go and check our website, which is now on screen, but I'm going to stop the sharing. The address is frenchimmersive.fr. .com. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. The floor is yours, Chris.
Okay. Yes, that is a very powerful lineup of creators. And for those who don't know, France has been one of the most fertile grounds for XR producers, Atlas 5 and obviously Backlight, excuse me. And I experienced ayahuasca 2 years ago at Tribeca, which is back again soon. But we're going to go now to Tupac. Tupac, what have you got for us?
Well, I mean, I'm a little bit tired of talking about Cosmos at this point. Not that I don't love it, but I just I think that until I can take it out on the road again, I feel like it's a tease to a bunch of people because they want to see
tease away. We gotta get new audiences into this because it's just insane, right?
So but obviously, you know, throughout pandemic, we've kind of rehanced a lot of the learnings that we have from XR and a lot of things that we've done in 360 and live entertainment, and you know, bringing all the different elements that we are as a studio. At the end of the day, we're a fully multidisciplinary space in which, you know, we go anywhere from architecture to the tiniest pub that someone needs creative elements into it. So, you know, basically you can go from arena to headset. We do it all. And so, you know, in that ethos that we have of the realities and the idea of this places, spaces, and devices that we kind of preach at the studio. The latest thing that we presented is a series of NFTs, and but taking every element that we know of. We recorded volumetric capture of 3 dances, created 3 different pieces of music to go with it, and then we're telling the story of birth and death and rebirth and death and rebirth and death across the 3 pieces all together. They have similar techniques in the way that they are done, and they're very much techniques that we've been using for AR and VR and projection mapping, but now tidying them all together into a single space and putting them as NFTs for people to bid and buy. So they're very nice, actually. I've gotten some really nice messages from different people that have seen it, because one of the things that makes it very interesting is they're being exhibited in a gallery space, and they actually have a sculpture that goes with it. So the sculpture is not the NFT, but the sculpture is a physical representation in our world of something that lives in the cloud. And, you know, where it comes from, and the base of where it comes from, is this idea of when I close my eyes, who exists? You know, is it the body that I inhibit? Is it the soul that I live in? Is it the thoughts that I have? You know, obviously my thoughts are flying all over the place, but my body is in bed or in a couch or wherever I may roam or I may be. And so I am the physical representation of what exists. And so with that in mind is how we created these NFTs, hence why we have the sculptures.
That takes it way back, several millennia, but brings it to a very timely digital present. Do you want me to show something here?
Yes, please. If you could show the video, it'll be up and running.
hold on a second. Wait as we get into share mode here.
Sorry to everybody, it's just that I'm not in the studio and I'm having to work it on an iPad.
Okay. Let's see how she goes here. Hold on.
Watch it again.
Yep. All right. Let's see here. Hold on. Bear with me. Sorry. All right. I love that music track, by the way.
Thanks. It's me just making a bunch of noise.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, I do love that. That's really great. So, before we switch it over to Michael, I mean, you're working on NFTs. You've done so much work in architecture, in fashion. I mean, and just a nod to what you mentioned about the pandemic. Where do you think things are going to go for you, say 6 months from now?
If it's anything to go by the amount of emails that I'm getting right now, it's going to be a busy period.
That is a fantastic answer, and that's a great way to pivot to Michael. Michael, what are you going to talk about today?
Well, I'm talking about sort of my personal journey that's definitely been impacted by COVID as well, and how I've used, XR over the last, really it's 6 years is when I started getting involved in it. So I'm relatively a recent arrival in the XR space, but it's not deterred me from trying to push forward and do some pretty, interesting things. So I guess I'll just, if you don't mind, jump into my presentation. So basically, my first project, which is sort of where I've ended back at the moment in terms of a project I'm approaching, was to do a Google expedition of Lake Baikal in Siberia in 2016. And basically, we filmed a series of scenes that were then eventually turned into a project that I made with my partner on the project, Georgy Molodtsov, based out in Moscow. And then from there, having been caught by the bug of producing in immersive spaces, we did an AR project using Tango technology, which I think luckily we're finally getting back to today in terms of the iPhone 12 and devices that are able to really accurately plot the space you're in. So you can really precisely lay augmented objects in a physical space. And then we were interested in capturing museums, and we did a project with the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. But the problems with these is that, to us, museums are a place where you want to be with people. And while this was great for the museum in terms of preserving an exhibition that has long since been taken down, and you can go through and get a real sense of what the space was like, it doesn't really equal what a museum experience is like in terms of what people think of in terms of going to a place like a museum. This was the next step up. This is actually a 6-DoF recreation of the studio where Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner painted. I like the fact that you really feel that you're in the space. I've shown this before, so I think because we're sort of short for time, I'll just keep moving on to
Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner were at
the project that I'm trying to do now, which is to take the elements that were shot in Lake Baikal and create an immersive space where people can learn about the ecosystems of, and I'm doing this basically to make it an international project, a collaboration of the two largest lakes in the world. Lake Baikal in terms of the actual amount of water that's held in it, which sort of covered up by our 4 screens on the top right and hand, and Lake Superior, which is the largest of the 5 Laurentian Great Lakes. And between the two of them, they hold 30% of all the fresh water on planet Earth. So I thought I would show you a pitch that I've done in Frame VR, where I've mocked up what the project would be like if we get to build it out. Though we would build it in Engage, which is a far more sophisticated platform in terms of education. Greetings. You're standing in MediaCombo's Frame VR demonstration of the immersive learning environment we intend to deploy on Engage and other virtual collaboration platforms. There will be 2 virtual halls, one dedicated to Lake Baikal and the other to Lake Superior. The signature feature of each space will be a 3D model of the lake and surrounding area. What you see here is a 2D Google Earth image of Lake Baikal placed over some virtual tables. We will build the model using bathymetric data to visualize the basin below the water's surface, and then topographic data from commercial satellite services to render the mountainous areas around the lake. Because everything is virtual, we can make the model as big as we want, and we're going to experiment with what sizes work best from a student learning perspective. We will then embed 2D and 3D video assets, such as this scene here, where students can be immersed in areas that are relevant to the lesson plan. Still images over there, which are tagged to that location. And we'll also have 3D data visualization temperature over time that we will be able to place sculpturally into the environment. The space will be able to accommodate 20 to 30 students working together. This imagery you see here is from a tour of Macaulay Honor students who were visiting this site back in March. We are currently working to host a student exchange in VR on the Engage platform this October, with 8 high school students from Duluth, Minnesota, and 8 from Irkutsk in Siberia to discuss the need to protect the aquatic ecosystems of their respective Great Lakes, which together hold 30% of all the surface fresh water on the planet. So that's it.
Yeah, I look forward to that, Michael. And you know, I think that that leads into a question with respect to location-based AR and VR. You know, we're, and at some point we'll get everybody back here. But you know, I think that one of the things that, of course, we're looking at now is coming out of the pandemic, how the location-based VR and AR offer new possibilities. But of course, you're also taking enormous amounts of data to recreate or help understand things. I mean, you know, Tupac, what do you see in terms of location-based experiences?
I mean, it's something that I'm hopeful for, but I realize that it might be a little bit further away, and obviously we're going to have to establish brand new protocols, just like, you know, going to the theater is going to change protocols, and you know, all sorts of things. We're thinking that we're going to need to have 3 or 4 headsets, just for one single experience, just so that we can switch them over and over and over again and get them sanitized and all those kinds of things. In saying that, I you know, a lot of the work that we're doing for in the live entertainment side of things is actually a convergence of every single piece of knowledge that we have from the XR world, and how we can create hybrid elements for people. So, you know, we have big expectations and big ideas about how to get there and how to actually reach the audience.
Yeah, Voyelle, what are you looking at in terms of thinking of location-based experiences, you know, producing now for even the near future when we're still, you know, having to deal with the pandemic?
Well, it's a big question. As I mentioned before, we try to mix and to develop different kind of formats, technologies, but also way to bring the experiences to the public. Of course, this pandemic changed a lot of things in our projects, but I would say on a global, general point of view, because we have these different kind of pipelines and way of doing the projects and way of bringing them to the public, we were not that much affected. In French, we have this expression, I'm going to tell it in French, ne pas mettre tous ses œufs dans le même panier, which means don't put all your eggs in the same basket. And that's why we didn't die about the pandemic, because we would have only LB's dedicated project. So for our team, it didn't change that much, because we continued to be not the first at the first lockdown, but we continued to be present physically at the studio, in order also to maintain a cohesion and a good pace in the teamwork. And because we have like about 15 different projects going on, some of them were affected, but some of them took another direction. Some of the LB's dedicated projects turned to be developed in another way. Some of them we keep the idea of an installation in the end, but we had to develop the online distribution strategy. So that's the way we work. We always try to keep agile and to listen to the market and to listen to the trends. And we still, of course, believe in LBEs, because we know that people need to have a physical experience, to go to some places and meet people and share about their experiences. So we'll keep looking at where the wind goes. And again, there are a lot of I'm sure we're going to talk about that. There are a lot of new actors in the industry, in the market, that are looking for this kind of experiences and that were not there before. So it's just a matter of the commissioners changing and just being aware, always aware about what the public or the different public audiences want and desire, because of course it's a matter of desire, right?
Yes, but at the same time, I mean, given the fact that we have not seen large numbers of people gathering for any cultural, let's say productions that may, I think we may see something entirely different. We may see that hybrid mode. I mean, Michael, what you showed with Pollock Krasner, of course. You're going to see more people this summer heading out to the Hamptons to that space. I mean, I would think that it's going to open up a lot more eyeballs to that.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a total that they have. It's a small facility. I think during the pandemic, they could take 6 people through the actual studio at a time. When it's full capacity, you can get 12 people in on a tour. And then they have 4 headsets, which people watch, who want to watch the VR experience that takes you back to the time when it was Pollock was actually painting and then Lee Krasner was actually painting. So last year they made the decision to, make it available, and we cleared the third-party rights to put it in the Oculus store, which is still ongoing. That's a tough one. But the Vive Arts and the Viveport is in the process of, we're porting it over to that platform, and that'll be done later this summer. It'll be available through their store. And, we're also talking with about possibly putting it online as a multi-user space, which again would achieve what I said is like the ability to have a social experience in a virtual place.
I think that to me it will lead to some sort of hybrid experience or series of experiences, because we've seen during the pandemic things like concerts in Fortnite or Roblox and really different gaming platforms, but lead to people having experiences they may never have had before in a virtual world while experiencing other things simultaneously. And maybe like Tupac said with respect to even NFTs, that you're seeing a new valuation, a new understanding of where virtual comes into our own experiences, and and the cosmology that's embodied there. Tupac, in the time we have left, I have a question for you with respect to brands, because of course brands have been driving a lot of high-end production and delivery of XR in the past really 10 years, essentially. Do you see that appetite still there? Are they embracing that, to capture audiences?
I think it's even more. I mean, if you look at like what Balenciaga did and where Dior is going, and the elements like that, I think that brands are gonna have discovered that there's an entire new way of enticing clients and engaging with people that prior to pandemic they were a little bit, I don't know if it's scared or just not thinking that it would be possible for them, and all of a sudden they found themselves having to go digital in many, many ways and understanding it. So yeah, I think what's going to become really, really interested is where brands want to take all this newfound knowledge for what is worth and what they need to do.
I mean, I think that that we've seen that from Pernod Ricard to Hugo Boss, and other even consumer packaged brands that have used this. My feeling is that they'll look to sort of tease people who have been in this sort of stasis, to get them on board. But I do think we're all kind of touching on how this needs to be applied to a much broader audience and not be sort of become more platform agnostic, essentially. I guess the one last question in sort of a lightning round is really how the pandemic changed how you work with your teams and clients. I mean, Voyelle, we've talked a little bit about how you've been able to manage through this, but have you come up with new sort of methodologies or new ways to do this? What kinds of discoveries have you made that you think will make things better, richer, more compelling?
Indeed, it's the spirit of the team, and we've always done like that, which is something that differentiates us from the traditional audiovisual industry. As I mentioned before, I used to work for TV, and it's a completely different way of designing, conceiving, working with your teams, working with your commissioners when you have some, whether they are brands or authors or broadcasters. We keep we keep moving and implementing all the time. So again, with our team, it hasn't changed a lot, except that at the beginning of the pandemic we had to work remote, all of us. But again, we are working on a digital creation. So if we are well organized, everyone can work from home, right? We do a lot of game engine projects, and also calculated animation. So we don't need to go outside and to shoot movies, right? So it works approximately the same. And with our clients, because I think this was the second part of your question, for some clients or artists or directors, the people we are working with, I mean, outside of the studio, we had to adapt to the pandemic. For example, I said we had some projects that were initially location based, and we had to rethink them, readapt them, and they became more a VR project. Whether it's still 6DOF or 3DOF, because you also have to adapt to all the needs from the platforms all around the world. And most of the time, like platforms from Asia are still looking for 3DOF or 360 videos. But yeah, we are reconsidering the format, but not abandoning what was initially thought by the creators. So meaning that maybe the installation will be done later with other financials and commissioners. And last but not least, I told you that we work a lot on immersive theaters. So we have a lot of experiences where you have an actor like in a motion capture suit, and that makes the show surrounded by the visitors. I'm sure you are aware of.
Oh, absolutely. In fact,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, may have seen the panel yesterday, on virtual theater that I did, and we expect that to grow. Yeah.
Sorry, and what I wanted to say is, because we have a couple of projects in development at the studio right now, we also thought about a last brick, which could be the last level of the rocket, which is an online version of this show, meaning that we're basically building a virtual stage or virtual theater where you can go and book your séance and just do the same experience, but from home with your friend, which is at the other side of the planet. So it's just a matter of thinking about different places where you can show your project with different users and for a larger and broader audience.
Yeah, this is great. Tupac, what about you with respect to any learnings from this lockdown?
I mean, everybody that knows me knows that I basically work digitally with my entire team. 2019, I think I was in London for 120 days out of the entire year. So in that sense, I think that the big change was for my team to not be around each other for it. But we found ways, and we were very grateful to Unreal and NVIDIA and many other manufacturers that allowed us early in their beta projects and beta programs to figure out how for us.
That's a great point. That's kind of one of the unwritten stories. If you've been able to get access during this period, I think that's really key.
Yeah.
You know,
So obviously there's, you know, we've done a few shows that were all, you know, multi-engine in the way that we did it, very much in a transmission type of way. But you know, it's obviously it's hard learnings, but we've been able to pivot many of the ideas. I mean, obviously virtual production has taken over a lot of our period. The part no one realized that we started working in VP in 2018. We were already doing things in VP. So, you know, my keynote at ISC in 2019 already had elements of it. So,
yeah, I remember that. And of course we're seeing those elements. If you watch the outrageous, you know, Cardi B performance on the Grammys, part of her intro had some really interesting LED wall, you know, content. So we're seeing that kind of blend of live with virtual. And Michael, you know, how do you, I mean, have you, you know, sort of gained some new knowledge or new practices during this period?
No, other than, I mean, everything was done virtually. There were no in-person meetings. So, but in that, luckily, we were not acquiring any, I mean, even any kind of volumetric or spatial capture can be sort of done off hours, but we weren't involved in any productions that required all of the kind of COVID protocols that a lot of people had to go through. So, you know, that didn't impact us at all.
Yeah.
And what I think is the future is what Voyelle was pointing out, is you're not going to see VR in museums because of the hassle of the headsets and all of that, partly the cost and partly just the maintenance and the sanitization and all of those issues. But what you will see is museum IP diversified and put into context that people will enjoy at home. And that's, to me, the future. And the more you can make that social, the faster it will happen.
You know, this is a really interesting thing, which gets to, I mean, you know, Tupac, you talked about the NFT, but I think that that's a path toward a better understanding of how to create digital experiences around cultural assets or just even location. You talked about the issue of, you know, sort of personal cosmology. And I think, you know, we've seen this particularly in New York with, you know, the Metropolitan Museum, which for years has been scratching around the surface, and the many others. And of course, Michael, you did great work with the Carnegie, or as they say in the Midwest, Carnegie, you know, museum. But I think that's certainly going to be another path to where we go. I'm sensitive to time because one of our panelists has to do God's work here for another company. That would be Tupac. We are so lucky to have him, as we are Voyelle. It's so good to see you again. Hopefully Voyelle in Paris, who knows, maybe later this year. Tupac, wherever you are, in Lisbon. Yeah, but come to New York, please. You know,
I'm hoping that I can be in New York. I haven't been to my office in New York in a long time, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Please, we should all gather in New York. Michael, I feel like I just saw you yesterday, but I haven't seen you in the flesh for a while. But you and I are much closer than these other two, so there's no reason for us not to get a drink. We're all vaccinated. Please go out and get vaccinated, people, and so that you can go back on set and feel comfortable. But in the meantime, this has been a great conversation and catch up. As I said, you know, bravo to all the work you're doing. Voyelle, FrenchImmersive.com. Look forward to that. Michael, look forward to more of what you're doing, and particularly this Lake Superior Lake Baikal project is very important. And Tupac, I just love your vision, and I love the NFTs, and I'm sure you've got some other aces up your sleeve. Again, Tupac Martir from Satore Studio, Voyelle Acker from Small Creative, Small Studio, Michael Owen from MediaCombo. I'm Chris Pfaff from Chris Pfaff Tech Media LLC. Thank you once again. Be safe, and as always, be virtual. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now I'm going to lay down 15 seconds of silence.